Hey everyone, welcome to Content Marketing Commute here in Paris. It's the podcast for B2B content marketers. A little bit of a mix of Jerry Seinfeld's comedians in cars getting coffee without maybe so much humor, hot ones without the chicken, and today I'm speaking to Jay Swanson, a YouTuber extraordinaire.
Hi.
How are you?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm well, man.
You ready to make a commute?
Yes. We're going to commute actually to my work. This is interesting. You're going to join me on my commute.
For anybody that was like, what kind of commute does Jay have?
Yeah.
I don't.
You don't, man. That's part of living the dream.
But I did brew my own coffee, so I'm ready to roll.
Living the dream. I haven't even had one.
I'll share a sip with you.
Oh, please. Do you have it on you right now?
I do have it on me.
Oh my goodness. Fantastic.
I figured we'll wait till we get on the bus.
Yeah, please. So yeah, this is going to be our first bus-based episode, Jay, and we're joined by Cooper as well.
I'm also impressed
What a legend.
Are you going to keep the camera going the whole time?
I'm going to keep the camera going the whole time, man.
You've got some good arm strength. This is what comes from having kids.
It's part of my gym workout.
Those little bodies all over the place.
Exactly, man. Hey, so we've known you, Jay, my wife and I, for a few years now.
Yeah.
When we're living in Paris.
Yeah, I've probably known you for at least 6 years.
6 years, man.
Yeah.
Amazing. And you are a full-time YouTuber.
I am.
Epic. How long have you been doing that?
Well, I've been doing YouTube. I mean, I started a YouTube account back in like probably 2008 or something.
Yeah.
Maybe even before that, actually. One of my oldest accounts is probably from 2006. But
Wow.
I started doing YouTube seriously with the intent to I don't know if I was ever really sure I'd go full time, but with I would say I started YouTube with intent in the middle of 2016.
Okay.
So it's been,
Wow.
yeah, almost 8 years.
8 years?
Yeah.
Flip. Crazy. And I was checking out. I was just checking you out before. I mean, I'm subscribed. Well, I don't mean in that way.
Hey, Joe Athletic.
Joe Athletic. Oh man, that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother story. But I was, I'm subscribed. I get the notifications.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I do. But I'm only one of 87,000 people that subscribe.
That's true.
Whoa.
But
that's like an entire stadium, Jay, of people.
That's pretty crazy when you think about it. I have a friend that he just did a show at the Zenith, which is a fairly large arena. It's one of the biggest shows in Paris. And I was looking out at the crowd. It was like 4,200 people.
Whoa.
And I was thinking, what's nuts is that every video I put out basically fills this room.
Yeah.
Maybe twice.
One single video.
Yeah.
Yeah. Epic.
Which is crazy. Obviously, it's not the same as selling tickets to an event.
Yeah.
But it kind of gives you a sense of the scale of how many people are watching,
does.
because I think it's really easy to, especially the game, with YouTube, and I think this is true, most content at this point is it's really, all you do is compare yourself to people that are bigger than you.
I bet.
And then you're just
even when you got 87,000, there's someone who's
100%. Yeah, no, because to me, YouTube, the way that YouTube works, and you don't even really exist until you have 100,000 subscribers.
Oh, seriously?
As far as the platform is concerned.
Whoa.
Which isn't entirely true for reach and so forth. You can reach people with nobody. But
yeah,
as far as the culture and getting your play button and whatever else goes.
Right.
And so it's really
you get one of those
easy
little plaques.
I haven't gotten one because I don't have 100,000
Is that when you get one though?
Yeah.
Sick.
So that's that thing of, it's really, they kind of intrinsically make it very easy to compare where you're at.
Yeah.
And you're, how you're performing in that way. So it's very helpful to then look out at a giant crowd of people like that and be like, oh wow.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, totally.
It's pretty cool.
It's massive. And so today, Jay, we're going to explore a little bit from a YouTuber's perspective. What can we learn from a YouTuber as B2B marketers, B2B content people? There's so much in it, in terms of the way you grow an audience, the way you engage people.
The way you survive the commute.
The way you survive the commute. That's what this podcast is all about. You'll hear the background noise.
And now we're competing with all the kids going to school.
Yeah, it's busy.
And we haven't even had coffee.
Well, what are we doing? But first of all, Jay, how did you even end up in Paris? Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I just wanted to be here. I think I actually just made a video about that a little bit, but
yeah,
kind of that thing of, I grew up wanting to come to France for some reason. I really don't know why. And so I learned the language, and then right out of college, taught English here. And I chose to go to Nice because I had some connections there.
Oh, lovely.
And then I went, and I wasn't really into it.
You went into it?
No, it was good for my language, but I was like, this is what I always imagined. This isn't the dream.
Too sunny.
Yeah, not even sunny enough. I was there during the school year, and it was actually pretty dreary a lot of the time.
Oh, real? Dang.
Yeah, and it was just kind of damp, and the beach is made of big stones. It's not even sandy.
Yeah, that's true. It's different down there.
Casinos and all kinds of stuff. So it just wasn't my bag. And and then I came through Paris on my way out, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I always wanted. I love this city. This is crazy.
Yeah.
Super cool. So I made it my goal to come back. And it obviously is not easy for Americans in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I taught English again to get back for a year, but then eventually had to weasel my way into a talent visa, and thankfully they let me come and stay.
Yeah. Wow. Very cool, man.
Yeah.
So that's the story of how you got here. And so we're talking YouTube. You've been doing it seriously for 8 years.
Yeah.
I want to dive into this topic around like how your process for kind of like building an audience, because I think YouTubers like yourself, you guys get this. And I think a lot of companies and brands could think about it in a similar way.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of times brands have kind of a product and they're trying to push a product first.
Yeah.
Whereas you kind of had the distinct advantage of going audience first.
Yeah, and I think you have to go audience first. I think that's just a mentality that has to shift.
Yeah.
If you look at like Morning Brew's channel, Good News.
Yeah.
Is it Good News or Good Work? Good Work.
Okay.
With Dan Toomey. It's really funny.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a comedy news, like almost investigative journalism.
Oh, nice.
Like deep dive.
Yeah.
It's really funny. And they don't even let you know that it's run by Morning Brew. It took me months before I realized that they were the ones that are making it.
Yeah.
But what they end up doing is they end up making like something of value for their audience that they're going to just enjoy watching.
Yeah.
And then if you've watched a whole bunch of them and you find out, oh, these guys are made by Morning Brew, a news company.
Yeah.
Wow, I might want to sign up for their newsletter.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
It's that kind of undercover thing.
It is kind of undercover, but I don't think you have to even think about it as undercover. Like, they're not necessarily hiding it. I think they're letting the value for their customer lead.
Yeah.
And so I definitely don't think you should be sneaky. I don't think you should hide anything. But I do think that at the end of the day, like, you have to think about what people are coming for, because if you're in an attention economy and you're letting your product do the talking more or less.
Oh no!
Oh my God. Cables.
We're cabled.
The bollards.
This is not a wireless podcast,
dude. This is an adventure podcast.
Yeah, it is.
I would definitely say I don't know. All that to say that, like, you have to think in terms of why are people even watching what you're doing? What are they showing up for? And nobody cares about your product on its own.
No.
And also, if you're just thinking about selling a product, then it's advertising.
For sure.
Straight up. Which, do people? Outside of the Super Bowl, do people actually like sit down to watch ads?
Totally, nah. That's the weird thing about the Super Bowl, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's one of the glorious elements of the Super Bowl for sure.
Yeah.
I want to step into the street here, actually.
Oh yeah. Okay. Okay. Whoa.
Maybe we don't.
It's so extreme.
Maybe it's dangerous. It's so extreme.
It's so extreme. And how did you think about sort of your audience building? Can you take us back to maybe the start?
Well, for me, I was actually I'm a really bad example of this, because I'm a good example, I guess, of what I just said, but I'm not a great example of audience building from a B2B standpoint, or from I think a quick results standpoint, because when I started, I guess the value that I thought I had to offer was just the insight into somebody's life.
In Paris?
Well, I wasn't even in Paris when I started.
Right, okay.
And so I had a bunch of projects going, and I was like, okay, one of these is going to take off, and I'm going to capture the experience of seeing like a book deal go through, or like this tech startup I was working at explode. And
so you kind of had an end goal in mind. You had like a product almost in mind.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, for sure. I think I was hoping to definitely share the projects that I was working on, and then but because I was starting with only a few hundred subscribers, I kind of figured, well, if nothing else, I'll at least capture the story, and then at some point people will get interested. And
build in public.
Yeah, build in public. Yeah,
build in public.
And I did build in public, and I failed in public really hard. Yeah, everything failed. And where's the bus stop, by the way?
So it's on route, what is it, bus 32? I think it might be over there. Yes, Schiffer. There it is.
Perfect. Good to check that before we just keep walking and talking.
By the way, we haven't sort of done this before. I've never been on this bus before.
Oh, perfect. Well, I don't think I have either.
Well, there you go.
It's a new experience for both of us.
New experience for both of us. I thought the bus was going to be a good way to do it, because I thought about the metro, but then I was sitting there, and it makes a really loud beeping
really
noise.
Loud, yeah.
So
among many other loud noises.
So you were saying you basically had had a kind of end goal, what you were trying to build towards.
And the way I went about it was, I was like, I didn't want to. So the thing with YouTube, especially right now, is YouTube is very idea oriented. So it's whoever comes up with the best idea and executes on it the best kind of wins.
Yeah.
And that's why you see a lot of copycat stuff going on YouTube, is because somebody has an idea that hits, and then other people are like, oh, I can replicate that.
Right.
They do it their own way.
What do you mean by idea? Like the whole concept of what you're...
Just kind of an interesting concept, like, man versus balloon, or, the Mr. Beast stuff, like a $1 mansion versus a $100 million mansion.
Yeah.
Just stuff that, like, sounds interesting. You're like, oh, I want to see what that is. That idea, though, can be... some of them, obviously, Mr. Beast stuff can't be replicated by pretty much anybody, but most of those ideas to some degree can be, and even his ideas, people do attempt to replicate them and make their own thing, and so they're capitalizing on those moments. They make the thumbnails look the same, they make at the top, everything's the same. And so that really worked for a while. It still works to a degree with a certain audience, with a large audience. I don't want to talk down about it at all, but at the end of the day, that's also kind of a race to the bottom where you have to continually be watching what's happening, try to just mimic what's going on, and at the end of the day, and unless you really manage to weave in a good story about who you are and you draw people into who you are as a person, as soon as you stop having those ideas, you stop competing in that way, you'll lose everyone's interest. They're just coming for those ideas,
versus coming for you as a person. Has the key been coming like really kind of... Because in terms of what you share, a lot of it
is... You're talking about loud noises on the metro and then the garbage truck.
There's a garbage truck
right next to us.
That's what it's all about. People like have their headphones in and their brains are just getting blown right now. Like their brain is just exploding, but that's why they love the podcast. That's what they're here for.
That's what they're here for. They whiff the scent of trash in the morning.
Can we take a quick break here?
Maybe.
Here, a message from our sponsor.
Later? It has the
Quick message from our sponsor. So the rubbish truck has moved on.
We think there's probably another one 5 seconds behind that's going to pick up the glass, and then that'll be next level. I mean, the how to succeed on YouTube is like it's a completely different episode, right? I guess my only advice for like succeeding on YouTube directly would be, honestly, go listen to some people like Mr. Beast. He gives everything away. All the information's out there. Like if you just follow him and the number of interviews and stuff that are out there. However, yes, for business, I haven't really thought about it for B2B in a while. I think with that, you do kind of have to follow that idea thing. But at the end of the day, what I would say is you want to make sure that it's thematically relevant to what you do. And
it's not just like disconnected.
No, you don't want it to be like completely all over the place. Like what's the most interesting or what's the most popular right now is the first thing. And I think the second thing would be that you want to make sure that you're building something for people to be invested in, to come back and watch regularly. It's always really tricky first to build an audience and then to move them in any particular direction. So I would say before you even start, you want to have an end game in mind where you're like, okay, like, where I want my audience is going to be here. Everything I build is in service of that. Even if it takes you longer to do it. And I think in a lot of ways, like, you don't want to bury the lead in the sense that you don't want to lie to people. You don't want them to come and like for a bait and switch. So I think it's really important that things are pretty transparent. I guess there's two things, right? One is that you want to have the end goal in mind, and so you want to be building towards that. So that's just good storytelling. And the other side of it is that I would argue you want to do the most you can to respect the platform itself, because the reason that like I bring up Morning Brew and Dan Toomey is because they hired like a comedian. They hired a real content creator.
It's not just some random intern guy who studied
and they let him loose. And they were like, okay, they gave him a lot. I don't know how much freedom they give him, but you get the sense they give him a lot of freedom. He says and does a lot of things that most companies would probably think are kind of offensive. And as a result, he makes something that like feels like real YouTube. And so it doesn't end up frustrating, I think, the average person that watches the platform, because they don't feel like they're getting advertised to.
That this is a different thing. Like, it's part of the same experience that they're getting with creators.
It's part of the same experience, but it's also like they're getting good value. Like, it's funny, it's informative, they learn something. Like, what are all the reasons somebody goes to watch a YouTube video? Give them that first. And I think that once you've earned that respect, it's the same thing as like you don't ask somebody to subscribe right out of the gate. Like, give them something first. Hey, if you like this and you want to see more of it, then subscribe. And the same way, if like you can give people real value with whatever it is you're creating, and then be like, hey, if you liked this, we actually have a service over here, or we actually have a whatever. That's a normal exchange. Just between humans. Like if you help people first.
And sometimes you forget that. I think businesses especially forget that, because they get into their own product and they just want to sell crap. And then you're just like, hang on, as humans, it's pretty intrinsic, the fact that we give and we get, and and like that can be part of business as well, right?
No, I think it's important. And that depends on your business, your philosophy as a business, and how you're going to do on a platform. Like, YouTube in particular is going to depend a lot on your attitude.
Yeah. And I really haven't seen it done well, like in B2B. Like it really feels like this dumping ground for like, you know, you do LinkedIn, you do social, whatever, but like maybe you do some webinars and you just like throw them there. Yeah. And you don't have a strategy behind it, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's something you could replicate.
Yeah.
In sharing your expertise. It's harder though because like to get found by people you actually want to be your customer. You know, it makes sense that you would go narrow and that you would try to go like direct with this kind of stuff. But if you want to think in terms of like long-term, I don't know, that is hard. Like if you're selling some sort of like, you know, like I was thinking fax machines. But if you're trying to sell something that is B2B, like you probably need to some degree fewer customers, but also those customers are going to be in a very specific place looking for a very specific thing.
For sure. Yeah.
So that might be different.
Yeah. Well, here's the bus, Jay.
There's the bus.
Woohoo!
It actually came. Our first experience riding the 32. Also, I got to get my Navigo out.
Yeah.
Wasn't even thinking about that.
I get my Navigo too. I'm going to hop on the bus. One other thing, Jay, we're on the bus now.
Yep.
I've heard a lot of people say YouTube's the second biggest search engine, right?
That has been true for a long time.
Yeah. So do you think about it in that terms in the way you publish content?
So for me, I definitely like, as far as discoverability and audience building goes, for me it's really helpful to make like helpful Paris videos.
Yeah.
Stuff that people are searching for. Nobody's searching for my name. Or nobody was searching for my name. Nobody's looking for my thoughts on anything. So I think you do have to come up with like, okay, well, what is it that people are searching for?
Yeah.
And again, how can I help them? Because it's that thing that I think there are a lot of misnomers around, not misnomers, but there's some misconceptions.
Eiffel Tower.
There's a lot of misconception around the idea that like, oh, if you just make something beautiful, they'll show up. Or if I just say something, people will be
Build
there.
it and they'll come.
Build it and they'll come.
Yeah.
And so the reality is you still have to tell a good story, and I think you still have to be useful. So like the three things that you can go for, I think, with that are like, can you be entertaining? Can you be helpful? Or can you be, there's a third thing.
Can you be
entertaining, helpful, or
beautiful?
So there's like informational, entertaining, and one other one.
There's one other one, but those are the two main ones.
Yeah, so we still haven't opened the coffee.
No, we haven't had coffee.
But if you can think in terms of like how do I actually produce something that's useful that somebody might be looking for, and then you put it into the YouTube with exactly what they're looking for in the title. Yeah, those kinds of things could be exactly what people go for. And on idea YouTube, the challenge is to then make something that's both searchable and is a hook. Yeah, and is like, oh, I want to learn about consulting companies today. Totally. Oh, like this like video looks kind of interesting or funny or cool, and so then you jump into it.
Real cool. Keen to dive in actually, Jay, to like the platform itself. Sure. Because I'm sure you've been doing it seriously for 8 years. You know the platform, different
pretty well
features and functionality. What, like, say you're just starting an account.
You gotta love how quiet the bus is compared to the metro.
Yeah. So you're just starting an account. Like, what's the things you're thinking about when you're posting, and like, what do you got to get right?
I think quality is the most important thing. I think going slow, especially when you're starting out, you want to go slow. You want to think about how you're going to grab attention and hold it.
Right. It's not just pumping out like.
No, you can't. Nobody will care. I think you can go wildly viral on your first video. I'm not a viral video. I'm not personally pursuing that, but I know people that do. And if you take the time to, like, let's say instead of pumping out a video every week, you make one every month or one a quarter. Yeah. But that one is a banger. Yeah. Like, there's a great chance that it actually gets spread to a really wide audience. Yeah. And then you get a lot more coverage that way. Yeah. But it requires.
Did you see this guy in Paris who did like the 5 best croissants?
Yeah, that was great.
Ultra viral. Yeah. But like all the rest of his videos are like super random. He's Italian guy.
Super random. Yeah. And it was a great video. It was a really funny idea. So good. And that's the thing is like coming up with something like that. This is the thing. It's hard to talk about that stuff specifically because what makes it ultimately successful is going to be experience. It's going to be like trial and error. Yeah. Like it wasn't his first video, Yeah. And the guys that are making their first video on a new channel, they probably put a decade in before they made that video, and then it went super viral. Yeah.
It's easy to see like a new channel be like, whoa, he just did like that.
Yeah. But all the channels that you see that go hyper viral off their first video or their second video, like those are people that have been doing it for a long time, and they're just starting a new channel, or they've been in something adjacent and they understand storytelling. So at the end of the day, you really want to think in terms about telling a good story.
Yeah.
There's no hack to getting through faster. There's no SEO with your keywords, and nobody even knows if keywords mean anything on YouTube. You can put in like your tags in like a special section.
Yeah.
Nobody even knows if that helps.
Wow.
I don't even bother with them.
Shit. The murky world of Google.
Well, that's the thing, and ultimately, the other thing I would say is like not to blame the algorithm, because the algorithm is just a stand-in for the audience.
Right.
What Google's looking for, which I really appreciate about YouTube more than like any other platform, is they're not looking to maximize like their view counts for advertisers. They're looking to maximize user satisfaction, because they know that if people stay and they watch, they keep watching, then the advertising will come.
Yeah, cool.
And so like a view on YouTube is still worth more than a view on any other platform, because it probably is a much more deeply engaged view. And what the algorithm is trying to do is trying to match people with content they're looking for that will satisfy them, and that's going to leave them happy, or leave them however they want to be feeling and wanting more.
Yeah. Obviously,
the algorithm can't know exactly what each person's looking for, but they're always homing in on that. So I tend to think about it in terms of like, forget about the algorithm, forget about gaming anything, forget about that kind of stuff. You need to think about, who am I trying to entertain and how?
Yeah, cool.
And how am I trying to inform them and so forth. So like, and even if you're just like, okay, we're just going to give them 3 simple points to better understand our product.
Yeah.
Let's say you're doing a thing about like a productivity software or something. Don't just sit and be like, so the first thing is, but you come up with a fun, creative way of delivering that information. Sure. But that immediately hooks them, makes them ask questions, makes them curious.
Yeah.
Opens curiosity loops, if you're familiar with that term. Like that whole idea where it sparks like a loop that has to get closed.
Right.
Like, I need to know.
This is where you see. This is where you see people be like, you got to wait round to the end of the video for this.
Exactly. But if you can do that in a way without even directly saying it.
Yeah.
And then open up more curiosity loops as you're going, so that people are like, even as some are getting closed, they're still like, but what about that other thing?
Yeah. Cool.
It's just good storytelling at the end of the day.
Totally, man. I love that sense of like, there's so much tech out there and so many different features and AI and algorithms, but at the end of the day, it's just quality. Like, and if you do that long enough and well enough, like,
I think that's why it's the opposite of something like LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn, one of the reasons that I found the channel I was talking about with Good Work was they made one of their early videos is, why is LinkedIn content so cringe?
I've seen that.
It's great.
I didn't realize that was what you're talking about.
And so it's that thing where there are other platforms that like really are, because they've maintained something that is more gameable from a just like pump and dump. Yeah. It's not even the right term, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like kind of a standpoint that it reduces the quality of what you see.
Yeah. LinkedIn's funny like that as well, because it's like, in a sense it does live for a while on the platform, but it's very difficult to find. It's not like a catalog, like a channel, right? And that's quite interesting.
LinkedIn can be very effective.
Yeah.
But my point isn't that I'm not trying
mindset,
I'm not trying to also like rag on LinkedIn content specifically. What I am trying to say is more that on LinkedIn you can succeed by following certain formulas in a way that I think on YouTube you can argue that there are formulas to it, but you have to really focus on quality. Yeah. If you want to really succeed. And back in the day, it was like frequency of uploading, where like there's a lot of different things that could impact it. Yeah. But now I follow and talk to people that they'll spend months and months on one video. Wow. And put that out, and then it goes nuts. One of my favorite history channels, he just released a series, and he comes out with videos like once, maybe twice a year. Oh wow. But he's probably pulling down 50, 60 grand at least on each video, if not more.
What's the channel called?
It's called Oversimplified.
Okay.
He might be making more if he ever sees this. He's probably laughing because he's probably, but it's that thing between merch and AdSense and sponsors and everything else. Yeah. Because he puts that much effort in, and then he gets tens of millions of views. Wow. I imagine that feels quite risky though, in terms of like you're putting so much into one video, and like I know personally, just on my small scale, sometimes you think this is going to be great. I've worked so hard on this, and it bombs. Yeah. It happens all the time. Yeah. And I think I know that's the challenge too. Is people? This is where people will start blaming the algorithm. Like if you get some success with that, it goes really well, and then you put a lot of effort in, and something bombs. The temptation is to blame that, but in reality, I think the real challenge with something like YouTube in particular. This is why I think it is probably a pretty risky space to enter into if you're doing B2B, would be because it's always changing. Yeah. And especially in the sense that like people, it's not just like trends change, but it's that also literacy changes. Right. People's understanding of how things work changes, the novelty of certain things fades. Yeah. And so whatever's been proven probably won't work. There are some things that will. I think there are some things that stand the test of time, but if you're trying to build a very big, broad audience,
Yeah.
you kind of get a shot at doing it. And if you miss it, you may never get it again.
Oh, wow.
Because everything will change. You'll have to adapt again. So the people that are doing really well, I imagine, are the ones that are adaptable and really trying to, and succeeding at maintaining their place at the bleeding edge of what's happening.
Yeah, but it speaks to like not being a copycat as well, and like having your own concept, right?
Yeah, the copycatting is basically the only guaranteed way to succeed if you can look at like what somebody does and replicate it really quickly, and do a decent enough job at it. Right. But again, I mean, from a purely money-making standpoint, we're getting into like the attention economy and how people really all they want is attention and maybe money, and if that's the case, then they're going to do exactly that. But for me, that runs the risk of like selling your soul. And it doesn't sound creatively fulfilling. Yeah. For me, I'm into it because I just want to create, and I would love to. I want to make a living, obviously. Like I want to be able to do it full time, and I'm lucky enough to be able to. Yeah. But I'd rather take a long, slow road to getting to where I want to go. That's awesome. I get there as who I am. Yeah. Instead of like pursuing the views and then one day being like, why am I making flamingo, like inflatable flamingo in swimming pool videos? I don't even understand.
How did I get here?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What is elephant toothpaste and why am I covered in it?
I think it's really cool. And I heard this thing recently around like, I think we're just about to get on the Champs-Elysees.
We are.
Oh, Champs-Elysees.
Your Arc de Triomphe shot's going to be just up there.
Shoot.
Flip it around. Here's your chance.
Can we see it? I heard this thing recently, Jay, about like intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation, and so it sounds like there you got like an intrinsic motivation just to create and to enjoy creating, and the extrinsic is to make a living. Yeah. But you can, I think that's the key to like keeping something consistent. Is like you got to actually enjoy it.
You have to really enjoy it, and I think so it's funny because if we hadn't been talking about B2B, and this is a really common question that's been coming up a lot of people that I either know or follow. People ask like, how do you become a YouTuber? What do you do to be a YouTuber? Blah, blah, blah. Which is a different conversation, but similar.
Like they want the lifestyle.
The first question is always why.
Oh, right.
Right. Well, why do you want to do it? Yeah. Because which can sound kind of like a jerk question in its own way. Yeah. But the reason is because it's going to be really hard, and the odds are very good that you won't see anything come from it for years. Especially if you're just starting out, you've never made a video before, odds are good you're gonna suck. It's that thing of like starting out by, instead of writing short stories, trying to write a trilogy. Yeah. Something I did do, and it was terrible. And, it's just
creating the Tolkien world and the languages and stuff.
Exactly, and that's the thing. That's why it's like it's doable, and you can definitely get started, but you're probably gonna suck at it for a long time, and things aren't gonna work, and you're not gonna instantly become famous. You're not gonna instantly sell tons of stuff. It could be years. I mean, for me, I was lucky that like when I went full time on YouTube after just a couple of years of doing it seriously, but I've been making videos since I was a kid. Yeah. And also going full time for me was, I just wanted to make enough to survive. Nice. It wasn't like I wasn't saving. I wasn't paying into retirement. I wasn't. I wasn't even paying rent. Right. Yeah. Like I was fortunate enough that I didn't have to. Awesome. So like there's a level of like starving artist that I was willing to accept because it meant freedom. It meant I could just focus on that. Cool. So I think all that to say that at the end of the day, that intrinsic motivation really has to be there. Yeah. Because if you don't really love doing it and just show up to do it, like I made a video every day for over a year and I didn't even get 1,000 subscribers. Wow. Right? Okay. So like,
was that in the early days?
That was when I was daily vlogging, and it's the thing of like I did it because I loved it. Yeah. I had hopes for it. I wanted to be able to do it full time and claim freedom through it. Yeah. But so similarly, like as a business, I think it's also wise to not think like, okay, if we just hire somebody for 3 months,
we're going to see results.
We're going to see immediate results. It's like, hire the right person, maybe, but I would definitely say it's a long game to play. Yeah. But
one that can be like super authentic, and that engagement and that audience you can build is obviously super amazing.
YouTube is powerful, and I think this is why I've never been into short form vertical content, right? Because I feel like,
which is becoming much bigger on YouTube, though.
Yeah, it is, and it depends on how you define bigger, right? Because not all views are created equal, and in a lot of ways we don't. It's going to spark arguments. Like I don't know that you can definitively say one or the other, but the image that comes to my mind is and maybe this has changed, so correct me if this is wrong, but I remember the first time TikTokers were invited to come to VidCon, have meet and greets and panels.
Yeah.
And they would have like 30, 40, 50 million followers on TikTok, but they couldn't fill a room of a few hundred people.
Yeah, wow.
And whereas with YouTubers, like the YouTubers that have a million subscribers, 10 million subscribers kind of a thing, they're not allowed on the floor for security purposes.
Whoa.
Because they'll just get mobbed, right?
Serious.
So there's
the depth of like connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like the level of investment that an audience gets in sitting down and there's an intentionality to watching long form content that you have to respect. So putting that intentionality into what you create will come back in, and this, it's good to tell this to myself, to remind myself too, like the intentionality of what you put into it is what will end up coming back out of it. And so throwaway content that you can just film on your phone and like put subtitles on and whatever, it might get a lot of views, it might get a lot of people to like it, but they're also probably just swiping past it and they'll never even know who did it.
It's that, like, what intent are they bringing to the watch as well? As
100%. Well, and if you're just sitting like on the toilet or like in the dentist office just trying to pass a few minutes swiping,
doom scrolling,
doom scrolling,
totally.
It's a very different thing.
Totally. Keen to explore, Jay, around the sense of like going from engagement to like driving actions, and I think a lot of B2B companies would be interested in that. Like, sure, it's one thing to get people to watch your stuff, and I think a lot of B2B companies would think, yeah, we might be interested in growing an audience, but at the end of the day, we want people to buy our thing, right?
Yeah.
Just in your world, how have you thought about that in terms of like, you know, making your living on Patreon or whatever? Like, how do you go from that kind of engagement to action with people? I know there's probably not a trick to it, but
no, I think you just have to ask. I think that again, and I actually don't ask enough. I used to have some rules around that so that I would ask. Okay. Because I tended not to. Okay. I tend to be like, well, and I think it's that understanding that you are also, you know, I mean, what you're offering, what you're creating, if it gives people value, there's a good chance they're going to want to contribute back. Cool. I think we all feel that it's natural to feel like, okay, if I've gotten a lot from somebody, I want to give them something back. Yeah. And that's one part of it. And the other side is, again, if what you're offering actually is valuable in and of itself, and what you're doing is building an audience and content to help people find it, then good marketing is simply matching people with what they actually need, right? Yeah. So in that sense, I think it's having a clear call to action at appropriate times that make good sense. And it's like, hey, like if you're looking for this thing, this service, this convention, this whatever,
and not shying away from the reciprocity you have to make people have. Like,
you have to make an offer at some point.
Yeah. Cool.
I think that's the other thing, and it's easier for the business side, I'm sure, than for like the artist side, where it's like, I think most people, especially when you make something out of that intrinsic motivation because you want to create, it's really hard to then like ask for money because you feel like that'll sully the experience.
Right.
Somehow.
Sure.
But the reality is, I think it's twofold. One, if you don't make any money, you're not going to get to make any art. Yeah. And two, the money that you receive ideally should be a reflection of the value you're adding to the world.
Yeah. Cool.
Right, like it should.
It's a good way to think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're adding a lot of value to the world, then it makes total sense that should return to you in some form or another, including in getting paid. Yeah. How you go about doing that, it's going to depend on how you feel comfortable with it and whatever else. But comfort shouldn't be a part of it. Now we're talking to the artists in the room, but
sure.
I think it's
you actually have to put it out there. Like, you're not just going to expect people to get that you need to get paid.
No, 100%. It's like that thing. Like, if you're at some point, you have to, even if it's just being the sponsor of your own video, just take a minute to be like, hey, by the way, I have this thing. Yeah. Like, go check it out.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
So you can think, but if YouTube, especially if you're going to build a broad audience like that, it's probably pretty top of funnel, right? Like you're probably just introducing people to your world. Yeah. And then maybe the action that you're getting is just to get them to go to a landing page or sign up for a newsletter or whatever. It really depends on what you're up to.
Cool. Do you have kind of like, do you think about it in stages of like what you ask people to do, or do you kind of just have one specific offer?
No, I used to. I mean, like I tried to obviously offer a lot. And for the first year, I barely even asked for anything. That's why my Patreon didn't really grow. I sold some guides here and there, but I have a guide to Paris that I sell. And then I just kind of get to that point where I was like, no, like I did used to think in terms of like a funnel, like working my way through like, okay, people find me and then they like me for these reasons and whatever, but I also felt like I couldn't fully control that. Like I saw that it was working that way, but also I wasn't sure that I was the reason it was working that way. Like the strategy was why it was actually happening.
Yeah.
So I think there's nothing wrong with being really intentional with how you structure everything and think it through. I think that especially depending on your audience, like an American audience will appreciate that. They'll see the effort that goes into it.
Right.
There's like a respect to how you're advertised too. I think in American culture, like if people see like, oh wow, that was a good one. Like, there's
nice segue.
Yeah. And so I guess my argument would always be to respect your audience and respect their time and to try to give them everything you can as far as value goes. Yeah. And then don't be bashful in letting them know exactly what you want in return. You say, hey, if you really enjoyed this series or this video today or whatever, like we have a newsletter, and then again,
just make it clear.
Make sure that offer is clear that there's also value in this. Like there's real value in what we're going to give you over here as well.
Cool. This is a meandering conversation. We're on the bus and we're enjoying it.
It is.
It's fantastic.
Into traffic,
on cobblestone roads, that is a bit bumpy. One thing I was interested is probably going back to that audience piece. How much of your kind of concept or your idea in terms of how you frame your channel has changed over time based on like what you figured out your audience wants? Or have you kept it standard and then found the right audience?
I think I made the mistake of trying to follow my perceived audience.
Right.
I think when I started daily vlogging, that's when things kind of very slowly grew. Yeah. So I've never gone viral. I have some videos that have slowly built up views over time. I guess it depends on how you define virality, but because I do have a video that I made recently that kind of did, but like for me, it's been a very slow, steady process, and I just remember struggling because I have peers and I have a lot of people that I know. I mean, YouTube makes it very, very easy to see who's doing well and how, and like the metrics are very obvious, and that's one of the reasons YouTube is great, is because it's very transparent. If you make some money off of like Twitter or like you don't even make money off Instagram, and who knows how the funds work on TikTok, like you won't really understand exactly where it came from. You won't understand why you made money. And you won't be able to see from the outside, like really understand how people made whatever. And so I think that sorry, that was speaking meandering. That's good. All that to say that like for me, like I was struggling in comparing myself with others a lot and feeling inadequate, feeling like I should be doing better. And so I did start listening to those comments that were like, oh, I want to see more of this, I want to see more of that. Like, and the people that complained got to me and like, oh, this is too much, blah, blah, blah. And I definitely started veering off the path of what I really wanted to make and started making what other people wanted to make. And that was a really big mistake. Interesting. Then speaking of just wanting to sell stuff, then I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll just make a series dedicated to selling my guide. And then just do straight tourism stuff and just do straight helpful stuff. And that did okay. And like those actually by view count would do better a lot of the time. But the return wasn't necessarily there. The core audience, the people that were there that I'd really built slowly over time were less interested. I started to like actually get farther and farther away from who I am and what I really want to be doing, because I didn't come to Paris to do tourism. I didn't come here I just love the city. I just want to live here. But that's where it crosses over with that sense of a search engine, right? Because that's the stuff people are searching for, but it doesn't necessarily cross over with what you really wanted to do or the audience you'd built before. And that's the tricky thing, I think, with like, I guess you have to think about, because it depends on the business and how you're going to do the B2B strategy. That's a really interesting question, because I never really think about it that way. But like for me, I'm at a place where I'm also lucky enough to be able to take the risk of really just going back to doing what's interesting to me. Cool. And I want to pursue that more. And I think that I need to trust, and I think that I think this is applicable across the board. I think you need to trust that whatever interests you and lights you up, there'll be people out there that feel the same. Cool. And that want to see it, want to see your perspective, that want to be a part of it. And then the more intentional you can be about it, how you package it, how you like present that to the world, will help it to do better or worse. Throwing something up there with a terrible title and thumbnail just won't get found. So the searchability and like the clickability of something is really important. Clickbait like gets a bad rap in the sense that like, I mean, as a term, it originated from the idea that it was a bait and switch, right? Like you're basically like, look at this crazy, not giving them the real value, explosion or hot person or whatever, and then you click through and none of that is in there. that's like real clickbait. And then now when people talk about it, it's more that like, how effective are you at presenting what's actually in your video, but in a way that gets people to want to watch it.
Yeah, really cool.
And
because the thumbnail is so crucial, right?
It's super, and the title and thumbnail are wildly important, but then the first few seconds are super important.
Right.
The first 30 seconds are, like, every part of the video is actually really, really important.
Yeah.
And so that goes back to, okay, well, do what's interesting to you, but do so in a way that respects your audience.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're competing for their attention across the board.
Really cool. I really love that sense that, like, you know, what your idea is super valuable, and what you have and what you want to create is valuable, and there's going to be enough people out there that think the same way or are into the same thing as you, so you don't necessarily need to, like, sell your soul to follow the latest trend all the time.
You don't have to. You certainly can.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to get the coffee out. I realized we never got the coffee.
The coffee. We've been doing this whole thing without coffee. How have we done it?
In every way.
Aggressive.
Would you like some coffee?
Oh man, yes please.
Take a sip.
Quick sip of coffee.
Quack sap. Life-changing.
Quack sap.
Now we can start the podcast over. The caffeinated version.
I love it. Well, that's really nice. Have you got like a Mocha Master at home?
I just did the AirPress.
AirPress.
Yeah.
Love it. Very good, man. So we actually met you through coffee at Le Peloton Cafe. If you're ever in Paris, you have to go to Le Peloton.
Tasty.
It's the best place ever.
Yeah.
Probably the last topic keen to discuss with you, Jay, is around your creation process, like getting real practical on, like, say, how you plan content and how you think up ideas, and, you know, do you have a calendar, all that sort of stuff, or is it more spontaneous?
It's a both and. So getting back to it, so it depends on the phase of my career we're talking about. Like when it's been more the Paris stuff, it's definitely a lot of planning in advance, and you think through, okay, what's interesting both to me, but I think to an audience.
Yeah.
It's gonna turn into, sorry, they're just getting distracted by the argument with the bus driver behind me.
Oh yeah.
It's such an urban experience.
This has been an amazing experience of Paris. Like, I think we've got the ins and outs of, like,
you're getting the full
deal. Rubbish collection, arguments, bus drivers.
Lots of honking, yeah. So, okay, to answer your question more succinctly.
Yeah.
Either it's like thinking through the searchability of, like, what are people looking for? What do they need when they come to Paris?
Yeah.
How to use the metro, how to go to the Louvre, how to this, that, and the other thing.
Nice.
And you're just kind of going for the big popular stuff. And then I've definitely gone deeper and tried to find more niche and interesting things. And they don't perform as well, but hopefully they find the right people that are interested in seeing Paris the way that I would. So there's definitely a lot of planning and compromise that goes into that. As far as like the daily vlogging side of things goes, I definitely have moments where I sit down and I write out whatever the ideas I think might be interesting to talk about in the future are. But any given day, if I try to look that up and say, okay, my plot for today is just what am I doing, but also what is it that I need to hear? So like the theme of the video then hopefully is like, what's a message that I needed to hear last year or 5 years ago.
Okay.
What do I need to hear today? Like if I'm having a really bad day for some reason, it's like, well, why? And then digging into that and reflecting on it through the video.
Cool.
And so there is some planning that goes into that for sure, but it's kind of not much more beyond just what does my actual daily life look like. You know?
Okay. Oh, that's really cool, man. Okay. And I guess that...
Would you like some more coffee?
Oh, thank you. Whoa, double head.
Just putting your technical and drinking abilities to the test.
Man, this has been really cool. I think we've really covered, I see we've almost done 50 minutes of
How long is your podcast
unbelievable
usually?
content. It's between 30 and 45.
Okay, perfect.
But there was some rubbish bins.
There was definitely and some rubbish comments.
There was some rubbish comments. No rubbish comments. No, none at all.
I mean, hopefully it's helpful. I think it's tricky because, I mean, my business is B2C.
Yeah, totally. But that was sort of the thought, like, let's learn from a B2C YouTube guy.
For sure. I guess if there are any takeaways, I hope it would
Please, thank you for just bringing this to a summary.
You're so welcome.
You can tell you do it for a living.
I've been around the block. No, I think it's important because I'm trying to also summarize, like, well, what would I want somebody to take away from this? And I think for me, both as a consumer, but also as a creator on the platform, my main thing would be that I would hope that there would be a respect for your audience, a respect for your customers, and that you would understand that at the core of it all, like, is telling a good story. Like when we're talking about quality, we're not talking about like production quality. One of the things, so a little bit of how the sausage is made, and I haven't talked about this publicly at all. I will in like the next month.
Scoop.
The scoop. But like I'm intentionally being as unprofessional with what I'm doing right now as I can.
Nice. Just that authenticity.
Well, but also because you don't need it.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm trying to kind of prove the point to myself as well as just to kind of highlight to anybody that would like to create. You have everything you need in your pocket. You have that phone.
Yeah.
That's great. That's all you need.
Cool.
If you can add a microphone, that's the one thing that I do add right now just to make it more interesting.
Yeah.
But it's like everybody has the means of creation in their pocket.
Right.
Just go for it.
Do you feel that polish, like that polish sometimes kind of takes away from the authenticity?
And that's actually a big trap I think a lot of businesses fall into is that they
super overproduced.
It's a big part of the reason so Tom Nicholas did an interesting piece on why do YouTubers hold microphones now. And it is because there's a subcultural like anti-quality movement as a way of just saying like, no, the point of this is not to like have like cinema quality, like a perfect world.
Yeah.
Not everybody agrees with that. Not everybody's on board with that. Not all YouTubers hold microphones, but there's definitely like a push against kind of a corporate invasion of a space like YouTube. And so I think that like if you want to be welcome on the space and you don't want to find yourself on the receiving end of some really rough video essays, you have to respect the platform, respect the people, and that it's a process, and that you're there. If you're there to give first, then I think you'll find a much better reception than if all you're thinking about is taking from people.
Yeah, love that. That's a great way to leave it, Jay. Great way to sum it up. We're almost there on the bus, but we might just enjoy. It's great timing. We might just enjoy the rest of our bus ride in peace.
In peace and with shared coffee.
Yeah, with shared coffee, and leave these other people in peace.
They've been very interested to see what the hell is going on.
They have.
Yeah.
But that must be your life as well.
Yeah, I'm used to it.
Yeah, very used to it.
I'm impressed with it, but I usually don't carry around full microphones though, so yeah.
It's just to get people actually to look more. That's what I want.
No, so if anybody out there is like a prop designer of some sort, what you need to get is like a Ghostbusters backpack.
Oh, sick.
This like runs out of the Ghostbusters. That'd be amazing, yeah.
It's like
that's what it feels like you're wearing right now with this running into it.
Yeah, we're gonna go get some ghosts. Yeah. Cool guys, well, and thank you so much for joining us. This has been Jay Swanson, and we'll see you on the next episode of Content Marketing Commute.
Adios.
Goodbye.